I get, I guess, nostalgic feelings about Whitted. It's a beautiful structure. It's absolutely gorgeous.
I've seen all of the windows and things broken out, and it's sort of sad to look at it. Weeds growing up in the yard.
It seems as if part of our history has been demolished, more or less, you know.
Here is the building where so much had gone on, and there's so much rich history behind it. And
memories and stories that can be told. So it's very sad to see this building not being taken care of.
It looks sad to see it, you know, looking like that. And it has been a good building. It would be nice to, you know, if they could repair it.
I remember saying to myself one day, wow, somebody should take good care of her when she gets old.
What do you know about predestination?
If one looked at education at the time in which the Whitted School was built there and was developed, you would find, especially in many of the much more rural outlying areas of the state of North Carolina, that education for many was a dream, but fleeting dream for many, because there were not as many schools that were there to sort of educate them. How ironic, here in Durham though, and not far from there, was Fayetteville Street, where many of the great noted capitalists and business person and religious leaders and most noted person lived not far from there. And no doubt that had a very great and tremendous impact upon the school, the faculty, and the students. You know, I'm reminded of my grandma who said, one should forget not thy historical landmarks, you know. And I think an institution like that, like the Whitted School, serves as a great reminder of a time and of a period. And as we say in history, everything has a beginning.
Durham, North Carolina is a place which the world instinctively associates with tobacco. It has, however, other claims to notice, namely its solution of the race problem. There is in this small city a group of 5,000 or more colored people whose social and economic development is perhaps more striking than that of any similar group in the nation. The chief interest of any visitor who stayed long enough to notice would, however, center in the unusual inner organization of this group of men, women, and children. It is a new group economy that characterizes the rise of the Negro American, the closed circle of social intercourse, teaching and preaching, buying and selling, employing and hiring, and even manufacturing, which, because it is confined chiefly to Negroes, escapes the notice of the white world. There are, among the colored people of the town, 15 grocery stores, 8 barbershops, 7 meat and fish dealers, 2 drugstores, a shoe store, a haberdashery, and an undertaking establishment. Beyond this, the colored people have a number of financial enterprises, among which are a building and loan association, a real estate company, a bank, and 3 industrial insurance companies. The cooperative bonds of the group are completed in social lines by a couple of dozen professional men, 20 school teachers, and 20 churches. Today, there is a singular group in Durham where a black man may get up in the morning in a house which a black man built out of lumber which black men cut and planed. He may put on a suit which he bought at a colored haberdashery and socks knit at a colored mill. He may cook victuals from a colored grocery store on a stove which black men fashion. He may earn his living working for colored men, be sick in a colored hospital, and buried from a colored church. And the Negro Insurance Society will pay his widow enough to keep his children in a colored school. This is surely progress.
When this community came about, you know, you had, for instance, African-American ownership dating back to the 1870s in terms of African Americans who owned the first properties in Haiti. By the early 20th century, from 1890s up until the early 20th century, it started garnering a very strong reputation for progress, and it also symbolized what many refer to as the birth of a new South, thanks to a phrase that was coined by Dr. Erie McDuffie Moore, who came up with the term Haiti after he had visited Haiti.
He had visited Haiti and saw people of our color having strong community, and admired that, and came back and said, let's call it Haiti. And it stuck.
There were approximately 200 businesses downtown between, on this side of Pettigrew, down Fayetteville to what's Lakeland now, back up Roxborough and the Pettigrew. You could buy anything down except a new car. There was a Jewish store there, Katz Brothers, and there was Chinese or something running the fish market. But basically everything was black owned.
And if I look at, Durham particularly, I get excited when I hear about, Black Wall Street and movie theaters, to hear that, African Americans had their own property and possessions and opportunities, that to me is exciting.
So these African American men saw needs and figured out ways to help our side of town, and my mother still calls it the black side of town, and it still is.
I've traveled all over the world. I've lived in other parts of the country, and it's hard for me to explain to people what it was like living in Durham in our era.
Right.
And Whitted to me represents what that difference was. And I think that there's a great opportunity to use that Whitted building to really highlight the differences in Durham from the rest of the South.
I think, I believe strongly that these buildings, this architecture, are the armature upon which the stories we tell rest. They are the root of our history, and you cannot tell the stories as effectively or as vividly without those structures in place.
Okay, so this picture does say Hillside Park High School. Okay, the building itself was built in 1922. I don't know at what time, but later they added an extension. Okay, now in the 50s, Hillside Park High School switched places with another school that was actually on Concord, which I believe was Whitted. And so Hillside Park High School building became Whitted Junior High in the 50s.
What I heard about it, which I think for all reason is the truth, that the school was built as the first high school or school for African Americans in Durham around the early 1900s. And when it got overcrowded, they switched the schools between Hillside and Whitted. The original Whitted was a school that was down the street here from North Carolina Central, and they switched Hillside from the original location, and they made that the Whitted School sometime around 1950.
And let's see. Oh, this is cool. This is my mom's high school diploma from Whitted School, Georgia Alice Elita Atwater. This is her diploma from 1916, the original. Cool, huh? So there you go, Whitted School.
My name is Mary Hester Lively Smith, and I came to Durham in 1929. And of course, Whitted was the only school. It was called Hillside, was the only school. I entered Hillside, and it went from the 7th, I guess, through the 11th grade, because we didn't have 12th grade when I went.
And I stayed with it maybe 2 or 3 years, I think.
And then I went to Hillside, and I completed Hillside in 1941.
We were really looking forward to going to Whitted because it was the junior high school for African Americans at that time, and it was going to be a brand new environment. We're coming to the school that all of the elementary schools fed into in Durham. So we saw all of the African Americans my age, you know, at one time, and I think that was exciting to me.
It was real nice. It was real nice. And when you come by and you see this place as part of your history, I don't have any bad memories.
We had to be to school at 8, but everybody would get there about 7 o'clock to play basketball before the bell would ring. Hang out at the tennis court. I mean, it was exciting. You didn't want to get sick. You know, normally you get sick when mom wanted to stay home from school. Nah, you didn't want to stay home with your parents. You want to go to school where all your friends was at.
Sort of sits there at the top of the hill, and it looks like, you know, look how much pride we have in this building. Look how much pride we have that we're educating our children, you know, sort of in spite of everything.
Mama has 12 children. She has 12 children, and all of us attended with it. I think it meant everything. That was our home away from home. It was a family, and the teachers stayed. I brought my yearbook and my sister's yearbook, and the same teachers are there. They were there from, we all talk about the same teachers.
I got this job at Whitted. Mr. Schooler said that the junior high was getting ready to open in Durham, so he gave me a job.
I taught art, and I also taught special education classes, children who were in the 7th, 8th, and 9th grades. I had a homeroom right there under the entrance to the school.
We called her TT, but Mamie Elizabeth Harris, she and my mom taught at Whitted. My mom only taught there for 2 years. In the, I'd have to say, early 50s. My aunt, TT, Mamie Elizabeth, she taught at Whitted, I don't know for how many years, but I know she taught there for many years, up to the 70s, I know that.
The thing that stands out to me is that the students, the teachers, the administration were very dedicated, committed to that school. They believed in that school deeply. You never heard anyone complaining about anything at the school, and the teachers were all looked up to, were respected, and they tended to have the children's best interests at heart, and they worked hard for the students.
We had first-rate teachers, and it was going to, you know, that was their real push to make sure we could compete with anyone else.
It was a very supportive atmosphere, I think, and if you were struggling for any reason, there was always somebody there who was willing to help you.
Right.
I think it's remarkable that when you look at the books that we had were secondhand books coming from the other social structure high schools or junior high schools. We got books that they had used the year prior to. So the question at hand would be, what makes it successful? Well, it's the teachers. It was the motivation. It was the expectations that they had.
It was always separate, and we didn't have the teachers didn't have the resources. Sometimes we didn't have books, and we were expected to do and meet the same standards as the county. But the teachers were awesome, and they always said, you know, that was no excuse. And we would sit and have class and work while they painted, while they cleaned, and class went on.
We felt that we always had to achieve, you know, because you had to be just a little better to do anything, you know. And so we were always striving to be the best, you know. Like when I take the band, for instance, we didn't have a budget for the band. So a lot of our instruments were were given to us from Durham High. And of course, any band director knows whenever a student gets rid of an instrument, it's not in the best condition. And we took those instruments in the condition that they were. And not being braggadocious, but our band was better than Durham High's band, even with these beat up instruments. Right?
We really didn't have the resources there, and I can remember taking the students, marching students down to the Stanford Warren Library. And the Stanford Warren Library had a little bit more, and was a more conducive environment for certain exercises.
You had these institutional buildings that were seen as, you know, we are supporting ourselves in spite of everything. And it's interesting, the situation sometimes these buildings is very, it shows that pride.
The Whitted School, I think, really symbolized what we saw, hope in that next generation. When the students attended schools like Whitted, and they didn't just get an education, they were prepared for life. They didn't just receive education, they received something far greater, the idea of how to go about life and how to make a living out of life. And I think that really best defines that institution.
Its situation at the top of this hill, really overlooking downtown, I think says something about the strength or how important self-sufficiency was to the American community in the segregated era, and how much they felt like they were going to provide for themselves in spite of the challenges put in front of them by the white community.
In general, the teachers were very high qualified. Before integration, teachers often had higher degrees because they couldn't get jobs other places. So sometimes they had PhDs and they were teaching elementary or even junior high and high school.
We had teachers who really pushed us as hard as they could push us to do the best that we could possibly do. And I think that was true both at Whitted and at Hillside.
The whole philosophy was, you are somebody, and you're going to be somebody, and I'm going to make you somebody if it kills you.